Did you hear what Freud said? Freud said that we could get rid of religion and replace it with something else. Ooh, gossip. Find out here in chapter 7 of The Future of an Illusion. Hello, welcome to Chez Eric, where we talk about psychiatry and religion with the focus on how to apply it to your life. So we will be continuing Freud's The Future of an Illusion. It's the great seminal work where Freud kind of discusses why religion is just a big illusion and it caused the rift between psychiatry and religion. And today we'll be talking about chapter 7. But before that, let's kind of review chapter 6 a little bit. In chapter 6, Freud discussed this idea of an illusion. He just says that an illusion is something that people believe and they have a motivation to believe it. And he says that all religious doctrines are illusions. And because people are motivated to believe it, that's why it's so pervasive in society, even though it's really, really difficult to prove or find credibility for religious doctrines. So that was his big sort of chapter 6 statement. You can watch in the previous video if you'd like. In chapter 7, Freud then makes the bold statement that we can replace religion with something else, right? And he discusses the reasons why we should replace religion. So let's get into chapter 7. Freud starts chapter 7 by talking about, people would normally say, if you get rid of religion, there would be chaos and pandemonium, and it would be absolutely ridiculous, right? It would be riots everywhere. And he says, no, he doesn't really think that would be the case. I think, it wouldn't be so bad. And he believes that the benefits of getting rid of religion outweighs the possible harms that religion that could happen if you get rid of religion. And the harms of religion, currently speaking, outweigh the benefits that religion is giving currently. So it's a cost-benefit thing that he was talking about. But first, he talks about whether or not this book, The Future of an Illusion, is a harmful book to society, right? And he says, it's not that harmful. It shouldn't be all that harmful. Because a lot of people in the past have kind of discredited religion or had criticisms of religion. He's not really adding anything differently. All he's doing is talking about the psychological aspects of religion and why he believes that religion is an illusion, because he says it's more based on our psychology than on actual sort of evidence out there, all right? And then he kind of talks about, the worst thing that could happen is that people start hating him, they start yelling at him, yelling at him, I guess, or throwing stuff at him. Yeah, he can handle it. He says, I'm an old guy, I don't care. Right? I'm going to say what I want. Right? Maybe if he was younger, he would worry about what people think, but now he doesn't care about what people think. And he also says the worst thing that could happen is that they just ban the book, that people just ban the book. And I think the book was banned. I have to look that up. And then the next thing he kind of talks about that he's kind of more fearful of is this idea that psychoanalysis would be adversely affected by his work. Of The Future of an Illusion. It's going to cause so much controversy that people hate Freud, and in hating Freud, they're going to hate on psychoanalysis, and that was his concern. But he kind of clarified that people who are religious can still use psychoanalysis just as much as people who don't believe in religion. That psychoanalysis is a tool to understand yourself, to understand why you do what you do, to kind of pierce more into, let's say, your subconscious understanding of yourself. It's not really anything as a gate to measure whether or not religion is true. So he says, let's just be very clear, psychoanalysis is not part of this at all. All right? So that's kind of where Freud is. And we'll talk about this book specifically, whether or not it's harmful or not. Freud then says, religion has done really great things for the world, right? It has helped create a set of moral values so that people can do the right thing and create a sort of a system of laws and a basis for people to follow these rules and work in culture. Although he kind of asks the question, are people happy, right? But he kind of recognizes that there is a large number of people in society that are very unhappy, right? And he goes on to say, are people in the past who were, let's say, more religious or the religious doctrines were more prevalent in life, were they happier back then than they are right now? Right? Right now, we still have a lot of wars and strife and anger, right? And keep in mind that he was kind of growing up or had World War I and II during the time that he's writing this. So you say, society isn't any better now than before. And he also says, were people more moral back then when they had religious doctrines? He said, no, not really, right? He kind of pointed out that when religious leaders tried to get people to be more moral, they had to meet them halfway. They could say, okay, you could sin, but as long as you repented, you were fine. and sin again and just repent, right? And it was possible that he was referring to the indulgences where people paid for the sins that they were doing, and that's kind of what the culture was regarding religion, right? And he also mentioned this interesting aspect of, let's say, Russian mystics, where they had this logic that I think it was, if you in order to receive divine grace, you needed to sin. Therefore, God wants you to sin so you can receive divine grace, right? That was the Russian mystic. That's what he said, the Russian mystic said. And therefore he said, this idea that people were more moral back then doesn't seem to really be true. So he then points out that if religion doesn't make you happier, it doesn't necessarily create a better society, if it doesn't make you more of a moral person, then why should we keep it? Can't we just replace it with something else, right? He points out that science has really challenged the credibility of a lot of these religious, doctrines, the religious beliefs back then, right? And science even challenges our understanding of religion now, all right? So it's still a relevant thing to say. And he says science is this sort of a thing where we always kind of check things over, and we want to have experiments, and we understand, experimentations in reality, and we review things. So he says, science is a good way to go. He points out that the people who are educated would be able to transition from a religious reason for doing things to a non-religious, a secular reason for doing things. So, instead of saying God doesn't want you to kill, you say you just shouldn't kill because of these moral reasons, right? But then he also points out that it would be still very challenging for the uneducated masses to take up this secular view, because religion is the only thing holding them back from completely revolting, because the uneducated masses are often the ones that are receiving the worst from society. They're not getting the same benefits from society. They're the ones that are receiving sort of the probations or the negative effects of society to tell them not to do things and just work really hard and then not receive any benefits, right? They're not part of the 1%, okay? And therefore, he says, either we should continue to keep the masses uneducated, or we will need a new relationship between religion and society. And that's kind of what he proposes, all right? So that is the bulk of chapter 7. In chapter 8 and 9, we'll talk about and elaborate more and more of this as well. So, I will admit that I'm biased. I consider myself to be religious. I believe in God and stuff like that. But I still say that I'm not exactly sure that Freud makes his full case here, okay? That we should, because of everything he said, get rid of religion or replace it with something else. And the reason is because this entire time, Freud only really looks at one dimension of this idea of religion. He talks about the psychological aspects of it. And revolutionary at the time, certainly, but he doesn't really go into the anthropological, sociological, the political, the economic, right? He doesn't go into all of them, and I wouldn't expect him to. But to just make a case for the psychological component of religion only, and then say that therefore we should replace religion, it's a little bit of a stretch for me, right? It's a little bit of a stretch. And, let's say for 1 second that God exists, right? If God exists, right, the fact that there's a psychological component to the way we interact with religion, to the way we interact with a pursuit of God, doesn't preclude the existence of God, right? It's not even asking the same question. It just means that the way that we're pursuing God, if God is just a wish maker God, if God is just, anxiety reducing, right? If God is just something that we want to reduce our anxieties, then that's just not God, right? If God exists, right? That's just, it could be a component, but not really. And I can't help but wonder, I watch some YouTube channels here and there, and I hear the words, wise words of a lot of religious leaders, monks, priests, right, pastors, rabbis, and they have a tendency, when they speak about wise things, they have a tendency to seem to understand God beyond what Freud is criticizing about the sort of wishmaker God, or the anxiety sort of reducing God, right? That their understanding of God is something a little bit more mature, a little bit more, something more to it that can sustain sort of all of these criticisms. That I feel like that if you take, let's say, the best religious leader, right? Let's say Mother Teresa, right? Ask them about God. Or I've been watching, I think Dandapani, right? Dandapani, I feel like his stuff is pretty good too, right? There's something more there. And I can't help but feel that Freud's version of religion isn't the full version of religion that is available. It's only about one flavor that even I have an issue with as well. I have an issue with this idea of a an anxiety-reducing God or a wish-maker God. Okay, but that's not the main point I want to talk about today. Today, I want to actually ask you a very interesting question. At least I find it interesting. And the question is this: let's imagine a world, right, where we replaced all the religious ideas of morality with secular versions of them. What does that world look like? I wonder about that. I don't have the answer. All right, I'd like to ask you, comment below. What does that look like? Does it look different? Does it look exactly the same? If it looks exactly the same, then God literally has no bearing on what we're doing anyway, right? But if it looks different, how does it look different? What is God adding to all of this? What is the world that Freud seems to want to move towards or seems to be suggesting? And I want to ask also a separate question: what does a God look like if it's not a wish fulfillment, wish maker God, right? Making all your wishes come true / anxiety reducing God. What is the version of God that, let's say, very, very developed, monks and priests and, rabbis and imams and things like that, right? That they seem to have. What does that look like? What is it? And would Freud be against that? Would he still call those illusions, those versions of God? I wonder. I don't know. I don't have the answers. I'm just asking you because you're smart, right? You're smart. Let me know in the comments below. So I hope you found that interesting. Do like and subscribe to your comments and share these videos. If it resonates with you in any particular way, do share them so I can grow and see more people and say hi to more people. So yeah, I'll see you next week. Bye. So someone asked me if I had a good joke with Freud in it or a good Freudian joke. So I told them I'm a Freud, not someone likes puns out there. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm a Freud, not. Jeez. All right. See you next week. Bye.